We're live.
Welcome to the True Sky Crew podcast, where we share our cosmic pearls of wisdom. Why True Sky Astrology? Because when we align with the true sky, we align with our true self. We are your hosts, Sachi, Georgia, and Janine. Thank you all for joining us live or on the replay. Today, we are going to discuss Cetus Aries and answer some listener comments.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Ooh, no feedback.
Got
Got the live chat open, obviously.
Although we are going to be going through some live feedback.
Yeah, good times.
So first, we want to thank everybody for all of your support already, even in our humble beginnings as the True Sky Crew. And we have noticed your comments. We are going to start answering some of the questions that you leave in the comments on podcast episodes. And there was one in particular that we thought would be a really great way to start off today's episode. So we had from
Holistic Soul.
Holistic Soul. Okay.
Love that handle.
Mercury retrograde shadow period. I'm learning how to read again. So they said, thank you, True Sky Crew. I'm curious if you might consider doing a future podcast on how where so much astrology is Western tropical and sidereal, which is in contradiction to True Sky astrology. I awakened to the 13 sign True Sky astrology earlier this year, and I'm very aware of the confusing and conflicting information that is being shared with regards to astrology from well-known astrologers and communities in both tropical and sidereal astrology and moon communities, and it is not connecting with the True Sky astrology. I'm also curious what you have done with people peers once you connected and looked up that you once connected to and looked up to through Western tropical astrology or sidereal astrology, and who are not supportive of the True Sky astrology. Also, similar peers or leaders who do great work in various other spaces, but are sharing their work through tropical astrology or sidereal astrology lens, and it not aligning with the True Sky. I'm having a difficult time with this, especially peers and leaders who I used to look up to with their astrology and spiritual wisdom, but since navigating my True Sky astrology awakening, I'm finding it difficult on lots of layers and levels. I'd love to hear the True Sky Crew address these issues, how yous have navigated it, and advice for people navigating all the conflicting, confusing information on astrology. So wonderful question, wonderful topic to bring up. Very likely we will do a bit more expansion on this particular topic in the future, but we did want to address this and give our opinions from a couple different perspectives just to address it head on in the beginning. And the first thing that I want to say is for anyone who doesn't understand how tropical and sidereal doesn't align with the True Sky, that is in our episode 1 of the True Sky Crew. So if you haven't seen that episode, go ahead and check that out. We give visuals and lots of data on how these don't align and what True Sky is, which obviously it's pretty obvious by the name. It's going with the True Sky, but what sidereal is and what tropical actually is and what these things calculate. So who would like to start about their opinion on this matter? Hi, kitty cat.
We have somebody chiming in the background. Yeah, I feel like the truth is the truth. And if people are not reflecting that or talking about that, that's on them. You know, it's like you become a beacon of truth when you start aligning with it, and you're like this little pocket of light out there in the collective doing work. So it's like you just hold your vibe, you just do your thing, and your people will resonate into your life, the people who are talking about this stuff. So it almost feels like, yeah, we kind of need a True Sky support system, don't we? We need a True Sky sort of like counseling group.
Totally. And that's kind of what we're hoping that this podcast does, that it normalizes using the true sky, because we really are so far and few between. And I had a post that I had made on my Instagram, maybe even a year ago at this point, that true sky astrology tends to spiritually gatekeep itself, because not everyone is ready for that awakening. Imagine thinking that you're some enlightened spiritual guru teaching astrology. You have all these followers, all these believers, all these clients, right? Your money is coming from this. And all of a sudden you look up, you wake up to what is actually happening in our real solar system. And then you're like, and then you move out of fear. And I know we talked a little bit about this in episode 1, but from my experience, I had been working with a couple really big astrology accounts at the time of my True Sky awakening. And they literally said that they were afraid to lose their followers and clientele. They blocked me. They told their followers to block me because what I was saying was a lie. But it's like, you can look up at the true sky and look at yourself. You can use the sky up at any time. You can look up in the real sky, go outside. It's not controversial. It's not, some woo-woo, whatever. But people who are just using, astrology apps, astrology websites, astrology IG accounts without ever actually looking at the data for themselves, those are the people that you kind of want to look, be careful of. People who want to keep you in this box of illusion. And this is one of the biggest spiritual awakenings of our generation, especially within the spiritual community, because there are so many people who, yes, they do great work, whether they're aware of the true sky or not. And, once you recognize it, if you are afraid of losing something by continuing with the truth, then you're going to lose it anyway. You're basically building your own tower moment, because it's unsustainable by hiding the truth. So there are a lot of people like that. There are some people who are just, they're not necessarily aware. And obviously, as spiritualists ourselves, we respect people and the work that they do and whatever lens that they want to work through. But the truth about the sky is still the truth about the sky. And there's really no denying that. So I do feel there's a big difference between those that are aware and denying it for whatever, insert whatever poppycock reasoning that they want to, have. And maybe we should welcome some tropical astrologer, hash it out with them if they really feel that strongly about it. So if there's any tropical people around, we'd be happy to schedule a special guest episode where we can go through things. You bring your facts, we'll bring ours.
It's a walk-off.
Yeah. And the truth is that when we start to align with ourselves more and come into our truth, that a lot does start to fall off naturally. And then some of these leaders and peers that you are looking up to, now it's your turn to be that leader and that peer for your group. So this is also an opportunity for you to step into your power.
That's it.
Because that's really what it is. When we become aligned with the truth, we are stepping into our power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of this initiation process. So when you have this true sky awakening, again, it feels spiritually gatekept by its own being. So when the true sky is ready for you to be that type of leader, it is going to reveal itself to you. And then it's up to you to continue to align with it, or force yourself to align with an algorithm that is man-made and is an energy timeline siphon for the Catholic Church, which we talked about in episode 1. Yeah. And, part of stepping into your power is learning to go against the grain. It is being in an echo chamber of people who are all saying the same thing, and for you to know the truth so deeply that you are unafraid to oppose them and to show them the truth. That is what being a way shower is. So, it's a little bit more complex than just awakening. There's a lot of inner work of, being in your power, like Georgia said, and really unblocking your throat chakra and being unafraid to speak the truth, even when people are telling you you're wrong, even when you're showing them the data hardcore data, just
Yeah.
by telling people to go outside and look up at the sky for themselves, and they will refuse to do it because they would rather stay asleep. And it is kind of, disturbing because it's in the spiritual community. It's not like it's people who are just sort of, asleep to the matrix, or however you want to describe it, that aren't really interested in awakening. These are people who see themselves as spiritual leaders, see themselves as astrology experts. And something else that we touched upon in episode 1 is that, most people, I would say probably 99% of people in astrology are innocently indoctrinated into the tropical algorithm. There is no shame, there is no blame with having that be your starting point.
That's right.
Anyone who's getting into astrology, if
Yeah.
you get any app, if you go to any website, it's all going to say the same thing. It's really when you start looking at astrology and looking at the real sky that you're going to be like, whoa, what the heck is going on in the astrological world? Like, you will see it for the cult that it is. And that's a
Yeah.
big thing about North Node moving into Pisces. That's a big thing about Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and Neptune's, I think it's 17-year transit through Pisces. I think it's until 2040. It's big, and more people are going to start recognizing this.
Yeah. And if you're a person like this person obviously goes to people for information, it's going to teach you how to stand on your own 2 feet and use discernment. And then you become, that source of truth. And when you understand that what you're talking about is like, it's really what's there, it's like you don't care about the peer pressure. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like, well, this is the truth, and that's what we're going to talk about. So yeah, it just
Exactly.
becomes a moot point after a while. Like, once you get confident enough, you'll just be like, well, they can talk about that, that's fine. You can hold space for yourself, and it's okay for them to do that, but I'm going to go over here and talk about this.
Exactly.
So
It starts to become uninteresting.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
like blah 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 blah, like
Yeah.
Charlie Brown, the teacher at Charlie Brown.
Yeah, the peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, that's
And
fine, you can talk about that, but I understand what tropical astrology measures, and I understand the limitations of that system and how it is diverging from the true sky, and therein lies the issue for me. And I have no issue with like shouting it from the rooftop, like, hey guys, look over here.
exactly, it's like, hey, look at me at the rooftop. If this is what I have to do to get you to look up, here I am on top of the
Here
roof.
I am. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Exactly. And here we are. And to anyone who may be listening that is a tropical astrologist, or someone who has been hesitating for moving to the true sky after they've had their awakening. So as someone who's a tropical astrologist, I had about 22,000 followers at the time. I lost, 7,000 followers since then. I lost clientele. Wow. A lot of clientele stayed with me, and they were open to that awakening. But yes, I lost followers. Yes, I lost some clients, but I aligned with more aligned clients. I aligned with higher vibrational clients. I aligned with clients that aren't trying to, spy on their boyfriend or, figure out their trauma bonding in charts. Instead, they are trying to manifest their highest vibrational timeline, accomplish their goals, focus on their soul mission. And my business still has been great. I have become more and more abundant in all ways of life. It really is such a tool of alignment. And the thing about using the true sky is that it puts you on the most organic timeline. Astrology is a time-keeping mechanism. Yes. And when you're using something that is a timeline siphon that directly puts its energy towards the Catholic Church, which is, murder-suicide cult, basically, you're giving your energy towards something that is then being transmuted and used against the general public. And so when you are feeding something like tropical astrology, you are feeding the detriment of our world, basically, because you're giving your energy to a system that is not the organic solar system. So I really liked that Holistic Soul mentioned, even the moon communities. So imagine you're worshiping the moon as your deity, and you're saying, oh, new moon in Virgo, but the moon is actually in the constellation Leo. Like, what does that do for the lunar matrix of the energy that you're sending it to? And I know I made this comment in episode 1 as well, that if like right now everyone's saying Leo season's coming to an end. Janine, you had an absolutely wonderful reel today. It was hilarious. But it's like, yeah, look up, Leo season's just beginning, babies. It really is just the start of it. So if you are worshiping the sun, that it's in Virgo and we're starting Virgo season, that is the definition of worshiping false light, because you're pretending like the sun is somewhere that it's not. And so people who are still under these false assumptions and who still worship these false paradigms, even unknowingly, of the energy siphon, of the energy that they're giving it to and how it's being used in the world, they can still do great things. They can absolutely still do great things. They can still be good people. It doesn't make you evil to be on the tropical algorithm, but it does make you very misguided and misdirected. And it makes you an energy source for something else, even if you don't consent to it. And that is also part of where the energy goes, because these types of organizations don't care about consent. They will take your energy and use it the way that they want.
Yeah. And that's a distortion in the time matrix. Like when you start understanding the cosmic clock and all, the time matrix stuff, you're like, ooh, yeah, I see how that's twisting time, literally. So distortions, it's the obvious expression in the 3D matrix of time distortions. So wakey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah, that was a
who's...
really great question. I just thought it would bring up a lot of conversation that I know a lot of people feel the same way. They're like, what do I do about all this tropical bullshit? Like you can follow them if you just put them in a category in your mind. It's like, this is tropical. It's just going to be over here, pile 2, not that important. Or you just start removing them. Like I remove a lot of people from my feed when there's just very blatant tropical, like, this is the way, the light, and the only path you can take. And it's like, goodbye.
Exactly.
Goodbye. No. So you get out the knife and you start cutting stuff out. You're leaving.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is obviously move at your own pace for making this jump. Again, if it's not fully your truth, you have to do it within. So when it becomes fully your truth, it's going to be really easy to unfollow some people. And part of looking up to people, again, you're putting them on a pedestal. And part of stepping into your power is understanding that no one is above you. Some people may be ahead of you in a way, they may be further along in their journey in some ways, but there is no need to look up to someone. Just look up at the sky. You don't need to look up to any particular person. And so, unfollowing people is a really great detox. There were quite a few people that I still admired that I followed for quite some time until their messages no longer resonated. Yeah. Especially when it came to astrology, most of which are, a lot of it has to do with like the lowest vibrational qualities of the sign, just sort of poking fun at the stereotypical, whatever it may be, or just having tons of dystopian predictions consistently. So, when it's time, you'll know when to disconnect from whoever it may be.
Yeah. I still follow a few because some of their information is really interesting. Like, I'm self-taught, so I pieced everything I understand about the sky together myself. And a lot of it draws from the interpretations of people who practice tropical astrology. So there is value in like learning the archetypes through people who may use tropical astrology, or the house, symbolism, or it all translates over. It's just the placements are not accurate with the true sky. So it's like you kind of just compartmentalize it and you're like, well, this is useful, I can use this. And then that way you don't demonize any of it. You're just like, you just take what makes sense and put together a bigger puzzle with it. So it's been an interesting journey. And in that way, it's like I appreciate a lot of different kinds of astrology, like Vedic astrology, tropical astrology. It's like, because I've learned so much from all of it, but I stay focused on like what's really real and how does that fit into the real puzzle. And if there's a puzzle piece, it's like, this one doesn't want to go in. Okay, that one's gone, right? Like we'll find the piece that fits. It's out there somewhere. And even if that's like, I have to go discover it myself, like something's not jiving over here. What's the bigger picture that maybe nobody's realized yet? And I think that leads us to this conversation today about Cetus and Aries. So, yeah. You have any thoughts, Georgia, on any of this? Or
Well, you guys definitely, pretty much said it. I also follow a few tropical accounts, but it's for the same reasons, because I like the way they explain the archetypes or little things about how to even look at a chart, because it really is just then using all of everything you learned there, but just on the sky as it actually is. So, I feel like the bases were covered.
yeah, you got a couple of Libras over here. We're chatty. We know how to talk.
Yeah, and I have Pluto conjunct my sun, so I'm a bit more radical, I would say. Just like burn it down. It no longer serves humanity. Yeah.
I mean, I try to be like polite about things here on the podcast, but I honestly am not interested in tropical astrology. I'm not interested in tropical astrology as a system at all. I see a lot of astrologers kind of trying to mix the two, and I feel like it's a way to try to get the tropical people involved, which is nice, but it's not my role.
Yeah.
Like my role is just to be in the alignment of the true sky, and people, when they're ready, they will arrive.
Exactly.
And I would say that for me as well, like since I've shifted to true sky astrology, that I still have plenty of clients. I still have, like, that hasn't really shifted. It's just the type of client that it has shifted a bit. People who want that deeper truth. And so that is more in alignment with me. I have more to say to those people. So it ends up making sense.
Yeah. People who are looking for their true soul path. Yeah. That's my client base too. It's like, you got to be going deep in here or looking for your galactic stuff. Otherwise, we don't have much to talk about. Like, if you want to know what kind of car you're going to get next week, I'm not your person.
Yeah.
And if you just want to hear glossy, pretty things about yourself, I'm not your person either.
No.
Because we need to talk about what's real.
Yeah. Get into that psychic basement. Let's get in there and talk about some stuff, because
Clean it up.
Sometimes I do chart readings for people and I'm just like, man, they are not going to like this. They're not going to like this, but this was their plan. I'm like, it's my job to just lay it out for them. Be like, here's what you decided to do in this life. And sometimes it can be really hard. I mean, you're kind of like part stargazer, part counselor, right? So
yeah.
I feel for the people, who are like looking for somebody to be that sort of guiding light. It's like, if you're understanding the system, it's like, it's time for you to be the guiding light. So it's about honing.
It can be difficult. I think that's a good point, Janine. It can be really difficult to lay out the truth like that. There's times that I like almost fret over the reading that I'm preparing, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be a tough one, and to deliver it with grace and with hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, this isn't the
actionable
end of your story.
Actionable information. Be like, here's how you can work with this. I know Sashi does that. Like, she's into the chart hacking. She's like, here's what you decided to do, and like all the ways you can work with this. And I think that is such a good proactive, practical approach. So I do feel like that's the benefit of being able to go that deep too, is like, you really help people dig themselves out of some karma holes with some of the stuff that they've got to deal with. So
I'm always like, here's your code. This is what it means. Let's hack it. Here's how to work with Venus to bring in the love that you want. Now go do the work and come back to me if you need me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I love when I don't have
Exactly.
clients come back for, 6 months or a year. Like, wow, it took me a long time to do this, but I'm ready for the next stage. Like I found the
Mhm.
love of my life. Now I want to start my like true career path. It's like, all right, here's another reading. I'll see you in another year. So it's always
Yeah.
a really good feeling.
Same.
Same.
Sometimes like
Practical
I get
steps.
people that do little tune-ups, like they get the big chunky download and it's like,
Mhm.
I'll talk to you in 10 years, right? It takes a long time to sort of tease through it all, but like every now and then it'll be like, let's do a transit update. I'm feeling some weird stuff. So that's always fun, is like, getting like going to the salon, getting your hair refreshed. Let's go update some
Mhm.
stuff and figure out where I'm at now. And that's fun. So
Exactly.
awesome. Yeah, that was such a good question. So y'all, thank you so much for all your awesome comments on
Yes.
the podcast episodes. Keep them coming. Anything we find super interesting or relevant to talk about, we will definitely read listener comments at the beginning of some of our podcasts. So thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for tuning in, Julie. Your question is going to be next that you left on episode 1. So we really appreciate that comment. And we will be
Yeah.
addressing it soon.
And that was the timeline comment, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
That'll be
I think
good.
this is a good time to start talking about Aries and Cetus, who are the stars of this, literally the stars of this episode.
Yes. So where
Do
do
you
we
want to
want
talk
to
about the
start?
ecliptic, Janine?
Yeah,
I
do we
think
want to
that's
start with
probably-
we probably need
let's-
to start with a definition of what
That's-
is a zodiac constellation, just to cover all our bases.
Correct.
So that orange line, I think we have a different graphic.
So this is the horizon. This is not the
Yeah.
ecliptic.
Oh, okay. See, good to know.
But yeah, I will pull this up different time. Should I
Yeah.
pull up the movie of the definition?
Yeah, let's start with that one. We're gonna go with some good old Wikipedia. Good old Wikipedia juju.
So, all right. So here we have, I'll just click play, Janine.
Sure, it's just gonna make this little graphic move so people can kind of see. Gotcha. So the ecliptic is, from Earth's point of view, the path the sun travels in a year, or in multiple cycles over multiple years. It's literally the orbital plane of the Earth around the sun. But from our point of view, it looks like a track in the sky that the sun makes. Okay. So it's a point of view thing. From the perspective of an observer on Earth, the sun's movement around the celestial sphere over the course of a year traces out a path along the ecliptic against the background of the stars. The ecliptic is an important reference plane and is the basis of the ecliptic coordinate system. And basically that breaks down to latitude and longitude. Okay, so there's certain points on the ecliptic that is like 0 degrees latitude, 0 degrees longitude. So that's how it is disseminated across our Earth. And here you can see from a third person point of view what the ecliptic would look like as a plane. So we go around the sun, even though it probably doesn't look like that from this image. We go around the sun makes a track that is just like a line that we use to say what is a zodiac constellation. So technically a zodiac constellation, because there's 88 constellations in the sky, and the only ones that are zodiac constellations are the ones that the ecliptic, the sun, actually passes through. Okay, so that needs to be said.
So it's like so if you're looking at the sky and watching the sky, where the sun is moving through, which is basically kind of like a perfect circle, we'll say. So the circle that the sun goes through is the ecliptic line. So the sun's path through the sky is the ecliptic. So if you traced a line where the sun is and is going and was all around our sky, that would be the ecliptic. So if the sun passes through a constellation, it is considered a zodiac sign. So a zodiac sign by definition means the sun transits through that constellation, which is why in True Sky, we use the constellation Ophiuchus, because undeniably the sun moves through that constellation.
Right. Aries Cetus area of the sky is a little more dodgy, and we're gonna get into that. But
We are going to.
it also needs to be noted that the constellation is not the IAU boundaries. Okay.
Correct.
Those are so arbitrary. Those are science people that said, here's
In
where
like the
this
1970s
is.
too.
Right. They're
Yeah.
all rectilinear lines, does not reflect any kind of energetic true boundary. So that also needs to be said. So it
Yes.
doesn't matter if the ecliptic, i.e. the sun through time, does not matter if it crosses through the IAU boundary. That is not the constellation.
Yes. And
It
so an
has to
IAU
cross.
boundary is just an arbitrary line drawn by astronauts. It's the International Astronaut Organization that got together and did it, which is basically just gerrymandering of the sky. They really have no rhyme or reason. They look like all different weird puzzle pieces.
Yeah. You can tell that it's totally just made up. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the actual energy. Like stars are spherical light sources, okay? They make spheres and circles of energy. Like square lines that go zig, 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 zig around a constellation has nothing to do with what the energy of any of those stars is doing. So you discount that immediately. And then we get to have a really interesting conversation about this part of the sky, because you're like, oh snap, we got to rethink this whole thing. So tropical astrologers would not touch this with a 10-foot pole because they are so married to the zodiac sign of Aries. It is the beginning of everything for their system. So it really throws a wrench in the works for them, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, can you go to the one that says, did I send it to you? The one that says 8 degrees above the ecliptic and 8 degrees below the ecliptic?
Oh, yes.
We'll talk about that one because this one kind of puts the nail in the coffin of that one.
All right. Let's see. I think this is the one you're talking about. No, this is not the one. I don't remember seeing something. I remember us talking about that.
Okay, let me just pull it up on my phone and
Okay.
I will read it. How about that?
Or wait, is this zodiac belt? Okay, yes, I got it.
Okay, yeah.
All right. All right.
That's it. So some, I guess, systems consider the ecliptic a band 8 degrees above the actual path of the ecliptic and 8 degrees below, because I assume there's some wobble at some point. But, in my opinion, it's like what matters is where the sun is in the present moment. The sun is not wobbling in a day up and down in the 16-degree window. So if at the point when you're looking at the sun, it is not moving through a line in that constellation, it is technically not crossing that constellation. And that brings me to this other answer. It was like, since the ecliptic is defined as a plane, it doesn't really have a width. So again, the 8 degrees on either side is a projection over time. That's like a cumulative, I guess, a cumulative idea or concept that doesn't mean it's true in the moment. So you really just have to look at what's happening in the moment, because there could be, like, say 100,000 years from now, maybe the sun, transits it some other way, and you have to just reconsider it because the universe is always evolving. So things are always going to change. So
Yes.
you just look at it, what it's doing now. So that's what we're going to do today.
Exactly.
Yes. And then let's see, is there anything else with the graphics that we want to get on the screen? I think that might have been it for the ecliptic, just to get eyes on it. Oh, we can talk about the one with all the underlines,
Okay, yeah.
because that shows when the system was laid out with basically the latitudes and longitudes. The ecliptic, the first set of underlying stuff, the ecliptic as the origin of latitude and the sun's position at vernal equinox as the origin of longitude. Isn't that interesting? So the whole delineations of latitude and longitude on the globe are based on the ecliptic. And the division of the ecliptic into zodiacal signs originated with Babylonian astronomy, astronomy during the first millennium BC. And divided into 12 equal signs. They were looking for a simplified system to do agriculture, etc., etc. And due to precession, I love that this is in Wikipedia. I would laugh so hard when I saw it. I was like, yes, it's making its way into the mainstream. Due to the precession of equinoxes, the time of year the sun is in a given constellation has changed since Babylonian times, and the point of the March equinox, which is usually in Aries, has moved from Aries to Pisces in the true sky. I was like, ha ha, hallelujah.
Yes. So this is why, which we mentioned in episode number 1, that when the tropical algorithm, or even people who aren't even astrologists and just know their horoscope, say, oh, the vernal equinox, spring's here, and now it's Aries season. But the sun is in the constellation Pisces physically.
Right. Yes.
And even in Babylonian times, it was Taurus that began the zodiac with being at the point of the vernal equinox. So the reason why Taurus, Leo, and then the fixed star, the royal fixed stars are the royal fixed stars, is because they held the points of the equinoxes and the solstices. So we can really see that what we consider to be first changes over large amounts of time.
That is so interesting about the royal fixed stars. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That
That's
makes
awesome.
so much sense.
When I saw
then
that,
you got to rethink the royal fixed stars, don't you?
Right.
Wow.
And so it that was really eye-opening to me. And then when you think about how the area between Pisces and Taurus is untouched in the ecliptic, both Aries and Cetus don't touch it. It starts to feel like both signs really carry kind of a liminal space of in between. Yeah. And that it's really like Taurus that is in a sense the start, because it's the first materialized sign. It's an earth sign. It's where we come into form. Yeah. Though you could argue that with Aries, there's like a birthing of the self and an individuation from source. So you can still see how Aries could be that. But, I was looking at the Babylonian zodiac and they had Aries listed last, which I thought was really interesting, and just there on Wikipedia.
Wow.
Yeah, I think how you translate stuff, Sashi, where you talk about Aries is like sort of, well, you can talk about it, but I remember your session that I had with you, and it was Taurus is really like about coming into the body and like, earthy stuff. So I feel like that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for me, Aries is the energetic body and the like Kundalini, basically, like that isn't being used. So it's like being born, basically. But Taurus is your physical body and 5 physical senses. So once your energy body has formed into matter, that would be Tarian.
Yeah, and that just makes a lot of sense when you kind of start looking at these archetypes like this. Can we pull up the sky app so we can people can see the ecliptic and how it moves through the space?
Yes. So I just actually took a little video of this.
And before we move from this moment, I do think that's really interesting, like especially with Aries, because it's like, is the beginning the end? Is the end the beginning? It really does show like the eternal nature of our existence, that there isn't really like necessarily a defined edge between the end and the beginning. It's kind of
Yeah.
something that is a continuation.
I believe actually. Yeah, so in this part of the sky for me, so as we move through Pisces, which is kind of like the death, we'll say, if we consider the zodiac cycle the infinite nature of our existence, meaning we are born, we die, we are reborn, and our energy keeps getting recycled. Pisces as the connection to source and a return to source, we'll say, there's this energy split right here where it's like some energy goes to Cetus, which is the wisdom keeper, librarian, historians of creation, and also the subconscious and the creature of the deeps, we'll say. And some energy gets rebirthed here as Aries, as we would say, sort of like a conception point, right? But like when you're Taurus, that's when you have your own physical body. When you're Aries, your soul is like preparing to enter a new body through the womb. And there's even lunar mansion in Aries, which is known as the womb space. So this is an interesting energetic branch point of like, okay, do you want to exist again and move to Aries, or do you want to stay in the darkness and depths of Cetus and keep, sort of imprinting your last soul path into the Akashic records or whatever it may be?
So Aries, like the statement for Aries is I am, and that I still feel is very true. It's the thoughts, the energy body things, like you said, it's literally mental body things, emotional body, anything that's energetic that would, like a personality, right? Like a personality matrix.
It's
not
definitely
fully
the
embodied. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
that
your
spark
of
signature.
individuation. Yes. And that spark of individuation that makes you who you are. So in a sense, it's also the ego.
Yes.
But it's not like the false ego that we say, that we often speak of. Like, it's not about annihilating the ego. Yeah. It's like the personality.
Yeah. A personality matrix.
Like,
yeah. I could totally see that.
Well, it's so interesting because the way that I teach Pisces is because it's a connection to source, and because it is, transcendental and the ultimate nature of reality. It is the I am presence, the divine I am presence, where you are one with everything. Whereas Aries is the I am as a distinction of the sense of self, separate from the other. So this whole
big I, little I.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa, that just made some dream stuff make sense. Wow.
Awesome.
I am source, I am self.
Yeah.
So then that starts to like bring up, then what is Cetus a little bit more deeply.
Do we have something, Sashi, with the ecliptic on it?
So
can you pull up that sky app that you had last week? Because that was awesome.
So yes, I can. But that doesn't have the ecliptic on it either. But I think I'll just show it because it's a quick video. But the ecliptic is defined by the sun's movement. So imagine that the sun is like drawing a line here as it's moving through. So it just left Pisces, it's moving through Aries. We see that the closest star of Aries is right there. The sun never goes in the constellation Aries during our time. It's not going in Cetus either, but it is not going through Aries. So technically Aries is not a zodiac sign.
Dude, you just fritzed out. Say that one more time, because you have to get that on record.
Okay, here, let's play this again so we get the visuals. We have the sun moving from Pisces. We have it continuing moving, creating the ecliptic plane. That is the sun, or the star of Aries, and the sun never goes inside the constellation Aries. Therefore, Aries by definition is not a zodiac sign.
Da-da-da.
Boom.
Boom. Wisdom, pearl of wisdom. You're welcome.
But exactly. Luckily for us True Sky crew, which we defined in episode 1, of course, is that we consider transits and things that are outside of the zodiacal ecliptic. So just because the sun isn't going through Aries, we still do alignments. We still do, things outside of the zodiacal norm. So it's not a huge deal for us that it happens. But since the tropical astrology people want to have their definitions and whatever, if they play by their own definitions, Aries is not a real sign.
No. And you have to, can you zoom in on his back leg? Because I want to show, like, Sky Apps will show, mine does anyway, it shows the back leg of Aries coming down further than the fixed star, and the sun passes through the foot, which is drawn onto the sky, which is not actually, it doesn't actually pass through. So I just think it's super funny that it's like, we're trying to make this work, we're trying to make it go through here, but just because it passes through the colored parts of the constellation on your Sky App, it doesn't cross any lines that delineate the actual constellation.
Exactly. Yes, it's so important to remember that the little figures are so different than the actual constellation itself, which this one I like. It shows the little symbol, and then it shows the constellation.
Yeah.
Which this is an expanded constellation.
Yeah.
Looks like.
So when it looks like this, oh yeah, it's going to look like it passes through the feet.
Yeah.
When you actually just look at the lines that delineate the constellation, it's like,
yeah.
Nope, it actually doesn't.
Lines. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the star it gets closest to is the one in his back leg.
Both. Yeah, this one.
And I kind of consider that the closest to Aries energy, the closest to true Aries that planets get, like the most intense kind of Aries energy that surfs in. And then we have to have a discussion about how it just cruises through this spot. It just surfs through there, giant old void space, doesn't touch anything.
Exactly.
Between Aries and Cetus, and this is where Cetus comes into the conversation. You're like, well, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And
it's like
I think
cosmic birth canal space, like Sachi was
Exactly.
saying, like the back end of Aries being connected to Bharani Nakshatra. It's the womb space, and its symbol is literally the yoni, and it's ruled by the god of death. So that to me, I mean, that's like that's the birthing portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our ancient selves were very wise, and it's like, because I contemplate things like, well, why didn't they just make a constellation that did connect through that area? Because it's coded that way on purpose to tell us something. It's not on accident. We used to be way smarter than we were, you guys.
Exactly.
I agree with
so
that.
it's literally the story is up there in the sky, and when you understand what Aries energy is, you go, well, the sun doesn't illuminate that. Technically, nobody on this planet knows who they are. We're in total amnesia. And when you understand what Cetus is, you're like, oh, Cetus is like the deep galactic aspects of ourselves. Like Sashi was saying, like the galactic historians come from this area of the sky when you have alignments through here. If you don't know who you've been on a universal scale, you can't possibly know who you are in the present moment in this body. And that is what it says, in my opinion. And every time the sun passes through there, it's exactly like a birth canal. It's like how tropical astrology does this sit and spin like a sine wave, ever repeating, never progressing, never evolving. It's stuck in the loop, right? This area of the sky specifically is where the spiral happens. Like you can go up to another level because you literally become you remember a little bit of the galactic self with the Cetus deep dive, like the gnarly galactic karma and weird stuff that comes through, weird experiences through that. You integrate it a little bit, a little bit better who you are. Around you go again. And you just do that in cycles and cycles and cycles until you have that. Like my favorite reference is the movie The Abyss with Cetus energy. It's like, what's the guy do in the movie The Abyss? He goes all the way to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And what does he find down there? Little glowy aliens in a gigantic spaceship. And it's like, that's the realization you have when you finish your Cetus work, is you're like, oh, I come from Sirius. Oh, I've had incarnations in Centaurus. Holy
Mhm.
moly, that changes things, right? So it's a bigger story than just Aries
Mhm.
archetype stuff. Like
Right.
the complexity in this area of the sky is so wild and awesome, and I love it.
Yeah, it's true.
And
And
I
it's,
feel like, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
And I feel like it, it's like even more than just like, oh, I have Syrian. And I mean, it uncovers all of that. And so, of course, like what you're saying, when we uncover those, our history, then we actually understand our future more too,
Mhm.
because of the timelessness of our existence. But it's interesting to me too how Cetus is the primordial mother as well, and holds this essence that is eternal and before time. So in a way, Cetus is bringing us all the way back to the origination of our beings and all the way back to like our absolute God point. So
Absolutely. It's a real
those,
full
yeah,
circle moment. Yeah, it's
it
a
is
full
a real
circle
full circle
place in
moment.
the chart for sure. You have some big aha moments. And I wasn't using, yeah, Syrian. It's not specifically related to anything Syrian or Centaurian. It's like just your galactic. Wherever
Oh
you've had
yeah.
galactic
Mhm.
things, you will
Oh, it
start to
opens up
understand
all
those
of
things
those
more.
galactic
Yeah.
things, and it's amazing when it does because it helps
Yeah.
you remember who you are, and it's
Yeah.
so insightful. Like bringing Cetus into the mix is deeply eye-opening, but it's
Mhm.
amazing how deep it just keeps going. Like it, and that's what I mean by that. It's so deeply eye-opening on all the levels that it brings you all the way back to source.
Yeah. Yep. And that's when you understand it's like you've closed the circuit on your own, knowing who you are. You understand all your stations of identity, maybe not in
Yes.
one cycle, right? Because it may take many lifetimes to fully close that, 12 to 13 deep. You just full circled it. You're like, oh, and you're fully in your body with all your awarenesses of your multidimensional self across the universe and outside of the universe, like outside the time matrix. Like it's
Mhm.
a fun, it can be a very challenging area if you have placements here, because the depth of the Cetus work is really intense. But the quantum leaps people can make when they have placements here, it's like, whoa. I love talking to people with Cetus placements because I'm like, oh, if you're not already, you are gonna know some stuff about the universe, because you literally are like galactic level information. You know this stuff in your bones. It's
Mhm.
awesome. And then
So
we kind of have to talk about too. I'll go back to you, Georgia, but I just want to drop this little nugget. We have to talk about the part where it's like Cetus, Aries, Pisces. So we'll come back to that, but I just had to throw that out there.
Mhm.
I was just going to chime in that my Chiron is in Cetus.
Woo.
So
Yeah, girl.
before I understood that it was Cetus, I started coming into these deep feelings and understandings of what the mother went through in the time when the original fracture occurred, and like the pressure, the density, the horror, the terror, the rage, and all of those things started moving through me in this really profound way that for a long time I knew it was about the mother. And then I later discovered information about the Tiamat, which is that primordial sea mother, the primordial dragon, the primordial woman. And that began to make a lot of sense to me because I really felt like the very thing that I was healing was that moment of unconsciousness in the mother essence when everything became dark. But like not the dark that's like the darkness that holds the light, but like the dark that held all of the monsters and all of the demons in its shadows. So I will say it's been a huge journey to have Chiron in Cetus.
Wow. Yeah.
I believe it. That's deep, literally the deepest healing that can exist.
Oh, there he is. There's our friend. Good old Cetus. I think in ancient mythology, well, I don't want to say ancient, let's just say mythology, he's a tripartite beast that is a blend of fish, reptile, and I think lion. I did a post on it a bunch of years ago. I'm gonna have to go look it up.
Mhm.
So
Which is
that-
interesting because that's very similar to how the human brain functions. We have
Yeah.
our mammalian brain, our reptilian brain, and our, I guess we'll call it bird brain. So not fish, but I'm sure there's some fishy stuff in there.
yeah.
We, I
It
mean,
does
we
have
have our
scales.
aquatic eternal
Yeah.
nature.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. We came
And then I
from
think
water.
it's interesting too how it's like that trifecta of what feels like a little bit of Pisces, a little bit of itself,
Mhm.
and a little bit of Aries. So you can kind of like see how it's holding that whole space of the in between.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mhm.
I hadn't thought about that. Like the tripartite nature of Cetus is like, hey, look at this triangle right here with these three constellations. Wow. Let's see. I'm looking for that post to just confirm what those three animals were. Because there's a lot of different emanations. Like people have drawn Cetus differently over the years. Like now he's currently in a lot of sky apps as the whale, which I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, that's a really kind and gentle archetype for Cetus. Cetus is not that
Definitely.
cute and fluffy, you
Uh-huh.
guys. But
I
you
think
know, it's a kinder, gentler archetype, but the message is kind of still the same. It's like, what does the whale do? He plumbs the depths of the oceans. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll give you that one, but it's not as awesome as a whale.
Mhm. And the angelic resonance of whales are known as the history keepers.
That's
Yes.
true. The cetacean
So
consciousness. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's probably where that overlap came from. Even though Cetus in most things that I've looked at and read about Cetus was a bit more terrifying looking and sounding
Yeah.
than a whale.
It's very gnarly. It's a gnarly archetype.
And
And
the,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
the whale part too feels to me like the part of Cetus that is the mother's sound fields.
Yes.
Like when I hear the whale song, I feel like I'm also tuning into the eternal song of creation. And I feel like Cetus has something to do with that.
That is a very good point. I was just thinking that too. I'm like, the whale is the high octave of Cetus and the sea monster is the low octave. So they're
Mhm.
both legitimate. It's just which one are you more resonating at?
Where's your work?
Where's your
Yeah.
work at? In
Yeah.
that range. He's a chimera made of three different beasts, part fish, the tail, part reptile, the head, and part mammal, the paws. And represents three parts of our animal nature. Yes. Let's see. The fish represents the part of us that propels and navigates us through the deep emotional waters. The paws of the lion represent our capacity for moving forward through action, reason, and courage. And the reptile represents our reactive instinctual nature, literally the reptile brain. Sometimes he is also depicted with a narwhal horn. That one's interesting, showing his mythical unicorn status of the deep. So
And I feel like
he's had
that
a lot of
reptilian
emanations over
part,
the years.
that reptilian part feels like it also is like, what are you working with? Is it the part of like the lizard brain that you're
Mhm.
learning how to let go of? Or is it that reptilian part that you're reclaiming like your dragon?
Yes, both.
Because there is like that higher and lower octave of the reptile that we've come to
Yes.
understand.
Yes. The mastery of the reptile, the fear, the instinctual fear part of our brain, the survival part of our brain is how you become a dragon, right? Like mastering the
Yes.
reptile part.
Yes.
And it's just basically like a dragon is a fancy way of saying someone who's mastered their emotional bodies and like they understand how to move through the 3D, right? They understand manifestation. They create their own reality because dragons are really like creators of reality. And when you're like, oh, right. I get it. Ha ha ha. So it's just
And
somebody
that's why
who's
Cetus
mastered
is
the base
also
instincts.
connected with the dragon, because it's that creator of reality.
Yeah.
I saw something that that it used to be referred to more as the reptile, like the reptile fish and also the dragon. So I thought that was just kind of just interesting tie-in with the primordial mother aspect. That part is really strong for me in talking about Cetus. It feels like the kind of the heart of it all.
Yeah, I could see how the sea monster aspect of it would be like a distortion of the dragon energy, and that's
So
what you're
then through
evolving it back
Cetus,
to.
yeah, we're also befriending our own monsters. Like it's kind of also about like having acceptance for the aspects of ourselves that we would rather banish in all of creation, but we can't because they're us. So there's this like profound acceptance of our mismatched pieces and our ugliness in Cetus as well.
Yes, lots of
especially
trauma
from a lot of
processing.
different lifetimes.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say that too, especially when people have placements here. It's especially outstanding things from galactic lifetimes, especially galactic lifetimes that could have, if you haven't fully obviously if you have placements here, it's like you haven't fully processed it and you're in an earth body, but there's parts of you in pain loops from galactic lifetimes, and you can have very traumatic past earth lifetimes as well.
Yeah.
So you're usually dealing with a lot of pain bodies to process through, and it can be very challenging. But I love that it's not that I love that Chiron's there for you, Georgia, but I love the opportunity that it gives you. What a huge bridge that is in one lifetime. Like if you can navigate that Chiron stuff, is like you are such a massive bridge to those sound fields, and we know you are.
Yeah.
So it's just incredible.
Been like that. Like I've dealt with being in chronic pain since I was a teenager, that just in this last year I've finally worked with how to not be in anymore. And that had a lot to do with galactic past life stuff that I had to reconcile and accept, like things that I did that I was not proud of. So I feel like that's a huge part of Cetus as well.
Yeah, there can be a lot of hybridization trauma, like not specifically like moon chain lineage stuff or digressed organic, how do you want to say that? How do you describe moon chain lineage, Georgia? Like I kind of see Zetas as the model for that, because it's like it's kind of like a consciousness stuffed in a not really organic body anymore. It's kind of organic, but it's more machine than the feminine component is completely like gone. It's just it's an automaton kind of thing.
I do feel like there's some moon stuff through Cetus, because when, like for instance, in the story of the Tiamat, which is kind of like what informs what Cetus is, she was destroyed and her body in essence was used to create the new world, which is basically in a sense like the Matrix. And one of the Anunnaki gods stepped in and took place as mother. So in a way, I feel like that has a lot to do with how we have revered Moon as mother, when Moon actually does not hold creation codes. So I feel like in a sense we do deal with some of Moon lineage stuff through Cetus.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because the moon is pretty consistently going through Cetus.
Yes.
So it's really interesting. I have this photo up here from 2020. But in some years, or some months, I should say, the moon is more down here, actually moving through the constellation Cetus. And sometimes the moon actually does move through the constellation Aries. So it's interesting where the lunar path is and whether it's a little bit down here and up there. And again, because we use the true sky, there really isn't the problem with the ecliptic for us when it comes to transits. We're not going to, go by the ecliptic. If the moon is hitting Cetus or in Cetus, we're going to say it's a Cetus moon. Same when it's in Aries.
Yeah.
Right. Should we talk a little bit about this little patch, the little triangle patch right in between? Can you like forward that to show where a planet's moving through that, like a trajectory through Pisces, and it trucks it across that gap, which is really truly a blend of all three?
Well, I have the video of the sun moving, or do you want me to?
That'd be cool.
Okay.
Any
Yeah.
planet would be fine. The
Okay.
sun would be great because
Mhm.
obviously it's the ecliptic thing that makes the ecliptic.
And sometimes different planets will go through this corridor through here, but sometimes the planets can be in either Cetus or Aries, particularly when they're retrograding, I've noticed. I
Yeah.
haven't studied, obviously, thousands and thousands of years. But we can see, Mercury actually go through Aries or Cetus.
Mhm.
So just
That's-
something to sort of note. So again, here's the sun moving from Pisces, moving
Yeah.
through this corridor of Aries.
And Venus too, yeah.
Yeah. And you saw the moon there too. And yeah, so Venus is moving through that corridor as well.
Yeah.
Not touching either Cetus or Aries, but moving through that, which I think is really interesting, Georgia, the sound codes that you get from Cetus. It's interesting because through this, right, even skipping Aries of the energy body, it's sort of like sound creates matter because Taurus rules the throat. And
Yes.
so it's like
Oh,
literally
yeah.
sound codes going straight from Cetus to Taurus, sort of skipping Aries.
I could see Cetus
Or-
as the sound codes like water sound, the sound fields, and Aries is
It's like the energy
the
picking up or
light
something.
fields,
Mhm.
like, oh, it takes both. So it feels like for me, eventually we'll recode this archetype and make it something else that connects the two. Like that's probably why they coded it separately. It's like, well, no, they're ready when they decide to make this one archetype. Like make it a bridge or something, like
Yeah,
it's
we'll
literally
just
like a
draw a line
triumphal arch
here
that
to
you move
here.
through.
But
Yeah, we'll just
and
draw some lines.
exactly what you guys are
Just
saying. That's totally how I see it too. Like it's the sound fields that held space for the light.
Yes.
Sound is more ancient than light. So first
Yes.
sound, then light, and that's like the consciousness, the spark
And
of
then
I am,
manifestation.
the
Yes.
personality matrix, and then it comes to manifest form, which is why I was kind of like, well, Aries feels like, even though it's first because it holds that spark of I am, it still feels slightly liminal with Cetus as well, because it's like kind of like the mother and the father, the sound, the darkness, and the light, the consciousness.
Yeah.
And
Still,
then you
Aries
come
is
into
still
manifest
malleable,
form.
right? The
Mhm.
energy's still malleable at Aries. It's not set. Once you get to Taurus, boom, it's landed.
Mhm.
Yes.
Which it's interesting because Aries was always taught to me as the baby of the zodiac, and that is through a tropical lens. So it's interesting that this area is the separation between the mother and the child, and how that sort of fragmented into physical reality. And I also find it interesting that Aries can be considered the ending of the zodiac as well, because a lot of lessons. So as a chart hacker through Aries, a lot of Aries energy for me is understanding sacred selfishness, or being, allowing your needs to be met through somebody else. So you wouldn't, call a baby selfish for needing to be taken care of and fed by someone else and changed by someone else and bathed by someone else. Those are just things that naturally happen. But sometimes, right, if you don't understand how to let your needs be met by other people in this lifetime, when you go through this sort of Pisces stage of life, this can be, and of course, this is on the lowest vibration, the dementia, the sickness, right? It's sort of the worst way out that you can go. You sort of turn into that baby again, where you're back in diapers. Other people have to take care of you and things like that. And a lot of that is because you're kind of in that Cetus energy of like wanting to forget this lifetime and code it into Cetus while you're still in physical form.
Wow. I'm going to have to re-listen to that because that broke my brain. I'm going to have to chew on that for a while. That's kind of big. Yeah. Wow.
And you can see kind of in a way too, Aries being it could be the end in the sense that it all ends up at our own self. Like it all comes back to the I am. So in a way it's the beginning, and in a way it's the end.
Yeah.
But we can say with clarity that Taurus is the first of manifest form.
For sure.
True. And it, by definition, Taurus is the first zodiac sign.
Yeah.
Technically, yes.
Technically, by definition, because it is the first constellation that the sun transits through, aka the first constellation on the ecliptic.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to mention too, this little void space that is like this Trinity space between Cetus, Aries, and Pisces is some of the most intense. Like Cetus and Aries is
yeah.
intense, but when you've got Pisces as a triangulation, like equidistant from the three of them, it's like, oh Nelly, buckle up. And when planets transit through, like that explains a lot of why some of the stuff is super intense. It's like, well, this is all Aries season. No, it's not. Number one, no, it's not. Number two, it's definitely not, right? Because we're dealing with like this void energy, but it's like the Trinity field, this place in a chart where you have this opportunity to bring that tripartite point of view, like break out of the duality fields, I guess is basically what I'm saying. So you can move from duality to this Trinity, this tripartite consciousness, like, and that's just the expansion of your consciousness, right? Like you can step outside yourself. Like sometimes, I guess I would describe it, if you ever have had in a dream or meditation or astral travel, like 360-degree vision. That's kind of what that area of the chart is like as a metaphor. It's like, whoa. So it is a very powerful part of the sky, on par with like galactic center, super galactic center. It is and it's personal to us too. So, you know, galactic center and super galactic center is super spacey and cool and intergalactic, but it can be hard to land this area of the sky is like literally more personal to you on Earth. I feel like it affects you a little more significantly. Like you have to try and land this. You may or may not do the super galactic center energy. That's kind of like, you got some planets there. Okay, yes. Everybody gets an opportunity with this one to like step into these shoes. Seriously.
I liked how you said that it was about exiting duality as well, because I think that's part of our fallen infrastructure. And that when we come into like that Trinity and understand that whenever there's a duality, there's a third that's formed in the relationship between what we consider dual aspects. So I feel like it's also kind of a reclamation of our original architecture and geometry. So I really liked how you mentioned that, because I feel like it's so potently comes up in that area of the chart of the sky.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you watch the transits here, you just feel into the energy, you know, like how's your day going when something transits through there? Because it will be nudging you, not so gently, to step into that for yourself, like that capacity that you have to move beyond the duality systems. And it will feel very uncomfortable if you haven't done some of that work already, you know, because it's pushing you to understand your everythingness, your galacticness, and embody, and like your knowingness, to know it in this present moment. And that's a lot.
Yeah, it's like that die before you die.
Oh, yeah, it totally is.
You have to
rebirth. Yeah,
it's releasing those layers of things, aren't you? And that release from duality, Janine, is so profound. And I just noticed that when things move past here, they are going through alignments with triangulum up here.
Oh, I tell you what, the people that coded the sky were just incredible. Like I am amazed every time. That's such a good point. It's like literally,
it's literally right there.
Get the
like,
memo,
whoa,
we're gonna put this here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
It's like literally look up. Oh,
Yeah,
look at that.
Hilarious. Kudos to our ancient selves. Thank you for the memo. Appreciate it.
For all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yes. So yeah, sometimes I think it's funny, like maybe Cetus and Aries should be shaking hands across the zodiac, like across the ecliptic, or like just build build a bridge, or I don't know. So I don't know. My brain goes in weird places when I think
No,
about
I
it.
think
What would
like
that
that
look
too.
like in the sky to blend those two together?
Mhm. I guess
Which
it would
is
be a hybridization of 4 different archetypes. I guess we'd have to give it the Aries horns.
Ooh, interesting.
oh, that's
Interesting
the
thought.
narwhal
Mhm.
horn, the
Oh,
Cetus.
oh, the
Narwhal.
2 ram's horns become one. Oh,
Mhm.
whoa, interesting.
So we did have a question in the chat here asking if technically there is Aries zodiac or is no Aries zodiac, then if your sun placement is in true sky Aries, is it actually Cetus?
Good
So that is
question.
interesting. So while the sun is moving through this space and not touching either the constellation Cetus or the constellation Aries, how would that person identify as their sun?
That's a really good question. I can tell you how I read it, and we can all share
Mhm.
how we read it individually.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I kind of read it as a gradient. Closer to Pisces, it's more Cetus. It's like it's like always it's a percentage. Like you're 70% this one, 30% that one. Or it's a slide. There's a certain degree point I think in True Sky Aries, because they don't put Cetus on the charts, at about 10 degrees Aries, I start reading, okay, you're a little more Aries from 10 degrees Aries to 21 degrees Aries. And as you get to the last 3 degrees of Aries, I'm like very strongly Aries energy. And it doesn't technically have a zodiac sign. So it's not like I say you're a this, because there's not a thing. But the point is like you're really working on that who am I question in this life. That's how I read it. It's like, okay, you're working on that. You're really facing like identity crisis issues. So I will just say, okay, it's like you're more Cetus than Aries, or you're more Aries than Cetus. So you're either working on the deeper galactic stuff, or you're either working on more of the who am I in this lifetime stuff. But it's always a blend of both. And as you're closer to Pisces, gosh, it's a blend of 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's how I read it. What about you guys?
I basically began working with Cetus when I was in conversation with you. So I fully adopted your system because it actually makes sense to me and works for me. So I basically am in that same boat. But even in that end of Aries area, when we're kind of at like the ram's yoni, giving birth to everything, we're also kind of like at the sea monster's nose, which is also like so much about that galactic remembrance. So it feels like they're still really working so much in tandem with each other. Because when we come into the I am, we're also coming into the full remembrance of who we are. And we know that smell is highly connected with memory. It's the only sense that doesn't need to relay at the thalamus in the brain. So it's very direct in terms of like, you know how it is, like you might smell something you haven't smelled since you were 6 years old, and it transports you right back to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I will definitely read it like in the whole area as a blend of both, but like Janine, what you were saying, but more Cetus on one side and more
It's a
Aries on
percent.
the other.
It's like a slider button. It's like
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is interestingly, I have a different zodiac. It's like the HA ray system of the zodiac on my Sky app. Like I picked the Sky app that I have because it uses that system as an option. And when you use Cetus the whale, it's the nose area of this Cetus is actually the tail. So I think that's interesting that the archetypes
Very
between whale and
interesting.
sea monster are 180 degrees the other way from each other. Yeah.
That
So
is
that's
very
something to take
interesting.
into consideration, is like,
That
what were people
is.
thinking with that?
Yeah, that is very interesting. Because one is ushering the energy one way and one is ushering the other way.
Yeah.
And
See,
it's
the whale is diving down, right? Diving down.
yeah,
downwards.
this way.
And Cetus is up
Just going
towards
backwards.
Taurus. Yeah. So that's
Which is-
interesting to note. So if people didn't know there was different zodiac codings as far as the animal, how they're drawn, check out the HA ray system. If your Sky Map 3D Plus specifically had it, that's why I chose it. But HA Ray is the guy that wrote Curious George, just for anybody who might think that nugget is interesting. So he was
he
actually
Mason?
yes, he was actually Mason.
Yeah.
So he
Okay.
knows some stuff, and he's written
Yeah.
some really in-depth children's books about
Yeah.
astronomy.
And Curious George was about George W. Bush.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Mhm.
You just ruined it for me.
Sorry.
Like HA
I'm
Ray.
sorry. I'm
What the
sorry.
heck? Gosh.
I like that it has two directions because, and I think that you said this yourself, Janine, because it takes such a deep dive that it pops up the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to
So
look at
I
it.
like that its direction can go either way, though I feel like it's like Menkar being what it is still feels really potent to me in terms of the position of the creature. I really do like that it can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting nugget. It's like,
And it makes sense because that's where the zodiacal kind of front and or beginning end area is. So it even further implies the infinite nature of our
Yeah.
existence expressed through the zodiac.
Yeah.
And
I tend to like this configuration personally because it's like Cetus is looking this way. Aries is, technically looking at Cetus kind of thing. So it's like they're making eye contact. I like that model better, honestly.
Mhm.
That's sort of an interesting metaphor, eye contact. Like they're
Mhm.
making
The
a
I
connection
am
across.
contact.
Yes, they're making a connection across that ecliptic plane that is not physically delineated, right? But it's
Mhm.
implied.
Yeah. Yep.
Consciousness. It's a consciousness
Above the
bridge.
light and below it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which Aries is the I am, Cetus is like the I was, and Pisces is the I am presence of you always are, and you are always all these things as an expression of source, which is infinite.
Yeah.
Which for me, when I have the sun or planets that are transiting through this space, I do like the gradient. And I'll have to feel that out with some of my clients as well, because I have quite a few clients with Cetus placements. And for me, I always take where it is. So let's say like if it's right here, I will find the closest star of Cetus, find the closest major star of Aries, and find the closest major star of Cetus and draw it and say, okay, look where it is in triangulation to you. What does it look closest to?
Yeah.
So I'll
we really
as
need
if
the
it's close
ecliptic. Yeah, we
to
really need the
Cetus,
ecliptic
it's this.
on
If
here.
it's close.
Yeah, we need to see where the ecliptic is because you'll see how close it gets to that star in Aries's butt and how far away it is from this one.
Yeah, because it goes basically like
very close to that
this.
star. But
Yeah, so it's
that's
nowhere
everybody's
near its
homework.
head, but
That's everybody, all the listeners, that's your homework. Get on your sky app, go look at the ecliptic, go see where the ecliptic passes through there
mhm,
for yourself, and then go tell everybody
exactly.
you know.
And remember, it's not this picture, it's the actual stars. And something that I find helpful is in your sky apps, you can get rid of these pictures and you can just look at the sky as it is. And especially when you're working with the real sky outside and, looking up for yourself, you'll be able to see that for yourself. But again, even for me, ecliptic aside, for Mercury. So if Mercury was transiting and moving here, I would say you have a Cetus Mercury. It's very close to Cetus. It's this far away, from Aries. So that's how I would differentiate it. It's a lot easier when they're in the constellation or touching a star. And that, of course, goes to the discretion of the astrologist who's doing that work.
Yep.
And your own discretion, of course.
Yeah. So if anybody has questions while we're still live, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll answer any chat questions while we're still here. do you guys feel complete with that, or is there more you want to say? Because I would just like to pop up the
I'm good.
the fixed
good.
star like significant fixed stars through this region of the sky, just as a quick overview, not to go into any depth. Did you
Yep.
get that one that I sent?
I did. Let me pull
Okay.
it up.
I know I sent it later, so I just want to make sure.
No worries. Do you see it?
Yeah, so these
Do you
are
see
the. Do you see this?
Do you see this?
Oh, we're having full
You
circle
just-
moments.
See this? Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're super funny.
we are. I think
We like
so.
to have fun. You got to have fun because it can't all be super serious. Haha, there's another one.
Yeah.
So there's a handful that I consider significant, that these are alignments perpendicular to the ecliptic. If you drew a straight line perpendicular from the ecliptic, these would be some of the stars that I personally look at for galactic lineage stuff that carry some interesting significance for me.
Oh, did it? Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Yeah, I think you just got to toggle back to the other one.
Yeah.
There's only a handful in this
Yeah.
area. It's intense enough. We don't need like super jazzy fixed stars making it more difficult. So Mirac technically, like if you're using the midpoint system, Mirac is technically in Aries, or sorry, in Andromeda. It keeps bouncing around and I'm losing
Oh,
my-
sorry, that was me.
Oh, you're
I was
fine.
gonna try to like pull them up if I can.
Oh yeah, good idea.
This app is a little bit more difficult for me to use, but I'll try. All right, Mirac. Just go ahead, keep talking. I'll just
Yeah,
move on.
it's fine if the app's a little bit hard. We'll just touch it because we're gonna do a season on fixed stars. So I just
Yes.
kind of wanted to drop this nugget here and be
Gotcha.
like, we'll be talking about these things
Mhm.
in depth at a future date.
Yes.
So Mirac technically with the midpoint system is in Pisces. Well, the alignment is seen through Pisces. I gotta get clear on that stuff. Mirac is in Andromeda constellation and seen through an alignment with Pisces, through Pisces. It is debatable, like if you take away, like we were talking about, you take away the image of Pisces, you take away the IAU boundaries, it's like Mirac's kind of in that
Mhm.
triangular area. It's
Yep.
like right at the beginning of that Trinity triangle area, so it's
Yep.
that's going to be a really important star in a birth chart. Shadar and Cassiopeia is seen through an alignment in this area, Cetus Aries area of the sky. Hamal, I don't really read Hamal in a chart, but it's the alpha star in Aries, so we're putting it in there. Almach and Andromeda, Menkar and Cetus, Rushba and Cassiopeia. All the Cassiopeia stars are actually really big magnitude stars, and I think Cassiopeia has some really cool mythology. So you could technically include all the Cassiopeia stars, in my opinion. But these are the two I technically look at the most. And then Bharani and Aries, because there's so much juicy stuff to talk about Bharani. It's a nakshatra and Vedic astrology, and the whole tail feathers of Aries is a really interesting topic. So
Yeah,
we'll touch base on those more when we circle back around through our zodiac series and we come through this consciousness portal again at a more in-depth fixed star conversation.
Mhm.
So there's a handful. When we get to Taurus, the list goes on and on with the fixed stars. So
There's a big old boy. Well,
yeah, big old
Oh,
beefy.
girl. Say
It's
that.
dealing with all the Orion alignment, so there's a lot to talk about in
Yeah.
Taurus, but this is a nice little handful in this area of the sky. So, and that's pretty much all I want to say about that. If y'all have anything
Okay.
to throw in, feel free.
I think I'll save it for when we talk about fixed stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's a lot. I mean, we could talk for hours on just these guys. I know you
Seriously.
and I have before. It's like they're really good conversations. So looking forward to that for the
Same.
podcast. But yeah, these are all alignments, not conjunctions.
Yes.
I got emphasize that over and over because people get so confused.
Uh-huh.
Alignments are not conjunctions.
Right.
Right.
A conjunction is when it's next to it. So for example, Uranus is conjunct Jupiter here. An alignment would be saying, you know, Jupiter is aligned with,
Yeah.
you know, this
That star
right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Based
Right.
on
By
the
drawing a
ecliptic.
line from
Yeah,
the ecliptic,
alignments.
a perpendicular line.
Right. They're
So if this
based
is the
on
ecliptic, you just draw a line straight, perpendicular like this.
Yes.
yes, indeedy.
Mhm.
So let's see if we have any other questions. No, there's some funny synchronicities in the comments though.
Oh yeah, we stopped on someone's birthday, Miss Tree
Yeah.
School.
And Golden
Well,
Warrior Mama, something
uh-huh.
we were talking about was a synchro for her. So I love that.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Fun stuff. Well, y'all, is there anything else
Okay.
that we want to throw in the hat on this one? Like anything we want to get on record?
I think that we covered it pretty well.
I think so too. I think this was a great episode.
Agreed. I think
Mhm.
it's going to bring a lot to the table for a lot of people to chew on
Yes.
because it's going to chap some tropical astrology ass, and I am here for it.
Yes,
I think that's
definitely.
my sound
And again,
bite.
if there's any if there's any tropical astrologers that would like to come on, even if there's 3 of you that want to come on and talk with the 3 of us, we would love to schedule that time, sit down with the facts, and really hash it out.
Yeah. I do respect the tropical point of view because I understand what it measures. It took me a long time to have that realization though. So I do respect tropical astrology. It is a deep system to dig yourself out of, but you just have to start looking at where it started, what it was built to measure. And then you go, oh, okay, well, I see the value in it and I see the limitation. And then you start having other thoughts. So I think it's really valuable to talk to tropical astrologers just to understand their point of view.
Yeah,
So,
I would say I respect tropical astrologers, but since I've learned what tropical astrology is, it has lost my respect.
what it's become.
What it's
Like it
become,
wasn't
what it
intended. That
calculates,
wasn't the
what it-
intention. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because even knowing the attention with Ptolemy and what he was doing for the church, and especially
say-
with the
Yeah.
comment that we got about the timeline being off, it was actually being done during the time where the Gospels were being written. So it really does have much more of a nefarious intent.
Yeah. I do feel like there's a hijack point. That's for sure.
Mhm.
No, I feel that too. And so it's not like we're saying, you know, we all started with tropical astrology.
Exactly.
So, you know,
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. And it's totally fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a really that funny reel I made today. Somebody reposted it and made a
Mhm.
really good comment on that. And I was like, please tag me because I want to repost that because it's such a valid point. It's like the tropical astrology system shows you the pattern, the soul patterns you're just locked into and you're stuck in.
Yeah,
That's
your
the value of
matrix
tropical
program.
astrology. Yeah. Something you can't break out of. And I feel like the value is looking at what your sun sign is doing. The rest of the planets, the translations don't make any sense when you understand that
Mhm.
what tropical astrology matters. So it's
Exactly.
like, yes, you can use that one nugget and infer a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a sun algorithm only.
Yes.
I would say that
absolutely.
that's true with the sun too, because it's simply measuring light throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But a lot of people who think they're Scorpios are actually Virgos.
That's true. That's true. Real
And that
Scorpios
is
are
a-
very
can
rare
happen.
because the sun's only there for about 7 days.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's a very
Surprise!
different energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's a big shift.
Yeah. If you think you're a Scorpio and you're an accountant, let me tell you something. You're a Virgo.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have a friend that is the case, and I just laughed. I was like, "Really? You really think you're a Scorpio? I'm like,
Mhm.
what do you do for a living?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, got
A
it."
different kind of spreadsheet.
Yeah, right. So funny.
Yeah, I see
So-
that happen a lot too. Like I had a client who was like, nope, I'm an Aquarius. Look how weird I am. I'm like, you have 3 businesses. You're a Capricorn.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny. yeah, literally, like they might be weird businesses. Like, okay, so you're trying to break out of that algorithm. Good job, but still, you have 3 businesses.
Mhm.
Keep going.
Exactly.
So that's funny. Yes, ladies. Well, thanks everybody. In the live chat and watching live and everybody on the replay. Should we just like drop some, promote ourselves a little bit here at the end for anybody that wants to find us? I think so. Let's do it.
Yeah, go for it.
You can find the 3 of us at the True Sky Crew on Instagram and of course here on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know that. You can find me on Instagram as well at Inner Sky Alchemy.
And you can
Georgia?
find me. Oh, go ahead, Georgia.
Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. You can find me at Star Nectar Astrology on Instagram.
And you can find me at Sachi the Scorpio on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
ladies, for another amazing conversation.
Absolutely.
you.
And
you.
we should probably talk. So our next episode is going to be a transit report for the month of September. And then the following we will be moving on to Taurus. So keep a lookout for those episodes. We give updates on our Instagram at the True Sky Crew. So we hope to see you again in 2 weeks, Thursday at 11:30 here live on YouTube, or 11:30 EST live on YouTube.
Yes. Have a good
All right.
day.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.